Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. Kedah Perikatan National Chairman Datuk Seri Muhammad Sanusi Mat Noor has been sworn in as the state's 14th Menteri Besar today. Sanusi took the oath in front of the Sultan of Kedah at Istana Anak Bukit this morning. The January Assemblyman was reappointed Menteri Besar following Perikatan's big win in the state election on Saturday, when it won 33 out of the 36 seats in the Legislative Assembly. According to Sanusi, the appointment of the Kedah State Exco lineup will be settled this week. Separately, Datuk Seri Aminuddin Harun was sworn in as Negeri Sembilan's 11th Menteri Besar at around 4 p.m. today. The Sikamat Assembly person was reappointed after PH and BN alliance succeeded in forming the state government after winning 31 seats, namely 17 seats for PH and 14 seats for BN, while Perikatan secured 5 seats. While the overall state election results remain status quo, it was a competitive battle for the Pakatan Harapan Barisan Nasional Alliance, with Perikatan making gains in PH states such as Selangor and Penang. Political analyst Dr. Oisan says the results underscore a significant shift among the Malay voters.
Well, Malaysian politics, in reality, of course, it's a very racialized exercise. And therefore, you saw that in these 6 state elections, a vast majority of primarily Malay voters would perhaps prefer to vote for Perikatan Nasional, such that Perikatan Nasional won 60% out of the total number of state seats contested. And although out of the 6 states, 3 each are still ruled by Perikatan as well as Pakatan Harapan, but you can see that the Perikatan side, they are making significant inroads into, for example, Selangor winning up to 40%. Winning up to 40% of the state seats. So in that sense, the federal government now, they really have to have, some deep thinking as to how to go forward and hopefully win back the support of these so-called green wave voters.
He proposes that the unity government should continue to uphold its commitment to keeping the nation's politics free from racialization. Instead, he suggests adopting a more moderate Islamic narrative as a strategic approach to garnering support from the Malay population.
The federal government has been deflecting this sort of racialized politics by, for example, emphasizing socio-economic issues, socio-economic concerns, what they roll out to address these concerns, and this cuts across racial lines, obviously. But I think perhaps sensing that it did not quite help them, right, in these state elections, for example. I think it's very likely going forward. I don't think Anwar would, similarly try to make this government a very racialized one, but I think he will work very closely and across national borders with some of the moderate Islamic leaders, such as for example, his good friend, the president of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, and so on, to try to, in a sense, win back a more moderate, less extremist Islamic narrative. And hopefully that could win him some high grounds in politics as well. Yeah.
Bersih has reiterated its call for the Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim-led government and Perikatan Nasional to sign an inter-coalition peace agreement after the conclusion of the 6 state elections. It said that it was time for both sides to sit down, negotiate a peace deal and focus on nation building. Bersih said that endless politicking that has engulfed the nation over the past few years has distracted successive governments from the task of governing. It added that the constant raising of the 3R issues of race, religion and royalty was stoking ethnic tensions and threatening the fragile harmony and peace enjoyed as a nation. Similar to its first call on July 16th, Bersih also urged Anwar to take the lead by fulfilling his promises to tackle systemic corruption and implement institutional reforms that would lay the foundation for better governance, accountability and stability. It also said that the rejection of election results and discussions about a mid-term government are disrespectful to the people and undermine the foundations of democracy. Datuk Sri Najib Tun Razak has filed an application to remove Judge Colin Lawrence Sequeira from continuing to hear his ongoing 1MDB corruption trial in the High Court. The former Prime Minister's aim is to get an acquittal if the judge is recused.
Najib's lead defense lawyer, Tan Sri Muhammad Shafi'i Abdullah, said the application was filed this morning on his client's instructions before the hearing started. This was following last month's disclosure of Justice Sequeira's past connection with former 1MDB General Counsel Jasmine Liu, who is currently being investigated. On July 26, Justice Sequeira informed parties in the trial that he and Liu were once colleagues at a law firm. Liu is believed to be a former associate of fugitive financier Joe Low. Najib is facing 4 charges of using his position to obtain bribes totaling 2.3 billion ringgit from 1MDB funds and 21 charges of money laundering involving the same amount. Meanwhile, former Bank Negara Malaysia Governor Tan Sri Zeti Akhtar Aziz told the High Court in Datuk Sri Najib Razak's 1MDB trial that the central bank had not been aware about the source of the 2.6 billion ringgit in his private bank account prior to the 13th general election in 2013. Zeti said BNM only found out after a raid on AmBank in 2015 that the actual sum of money that went into the former Prime Minister's account was 3.2 billion ringgit. She added that it is the job of banks and other financial institutions to do due diligence on the legitimacy of funds entering into customers' accounts, and not the job of BNM. Zeti was testifying as a 46 prosecution witness in Najib's trial, where 2.28 billion ringgit of 1MDB funds were said to have entered the former Prime Minister's personal bank accounts.
We'll take a short break. Stay tuned for more.
Devil's coming. And everyone you love will be destroyed.
The game is over, Dom. You lose.
He's coming for you with everything.
You gotta get ready to fight. This is your last ride. If this is the finish line, I'm not preferred.
Bahas X. Siwa dan stream on demand atau sila ke saluran 480.
A Malaysia Airlines flight departing Sydney for Kuala Lumpur was forced to turn around mid-air following an emergency incident. Now, this comes after a passenger caused disruption during the flight. The Australian Federal Police confirmed that a 45-year-old man was arrested without incident, adding that there is no impending threat to the community. He is expected to be charged later today. Video taken by a passenger showed a man wearing a backpack appeared to be talking loudly and causing disturbance in the plane. The MH122 flight carrying 199 people on board, which flew nearly 3 hours into the 8-hour flight, landed safely at Sydney Airport around 3:50 p.m. local time. Sydney Airport said as a result of the incident, 32 domestic flights were cancelled, but no international flights were cancelled. At least 96 people have been confirmed dead in the wildfires in Maui, the deadliest U.S. wildfires in more than 100 years. Officials say the death toll is likely to rise as they do not know exactly how many people are still missing. Survivors are struggling to come to terms with the scale of the disaster, which Hawaii Governor Josh Green said was estimated at nearly $6 billion in damage. Some 2,200 structures have been decimated, and the hard-hit resort town of Lahaina has been almost completely destroyed. There are reports that warning sirens were not activated as the fire spread rapidly on Tuesday. Green vowed to investigate the response to the blaze after some residents questioned whether more could have been done to warn them. In India, at least 24 people have died and dozens more are feared trapped after an ancient Hindu temple collapsed in the northern state of Himachal Pradesh following heavy rains and landslides. The state's chief minister Sukhvinder Singh Sukhu told reporters that around 20 to 25 people may still be trapped under the debris. The state receives a large number of tourists around the year, especially the picturesque town of Shimla, where the temple is located. 21 people have died in the past 24 hours in rain-related incidents in the hill state of Himachal Pradesh. Hours before the temple collapsed, 7 people were reported dead after a cloudburst hit some houses in the Solan district. As the clean energy transition gains momentum, the demand for critical minerals like lithium, nickel and cobalt has surged due to their vital role in producing solar panels and batteries for electric vehicles. Currently, a few countries hold significant control over the mining and processing of these crucial materials, making the supply chain a key geopolitical focal point. Pacific Forum senior fellow Akhil Ramesh raises the alarm about one country's grip on the critical mineral supply chain, posing risks to the global energy transition.
We've completed 3 papers in a series of 4, and among them we highlight that critical minerals and batteries have the highest risk for weaponization because in the battery sector in particular, besides China and South Korea, there aren't that many players who have a control over the value chain. So while South Korea is an allied power, China more or less controls over 75% of the value chain. One country controlling the entire value chain more or less is a high risk for any country that wants to transition to clean energy, any country that wants to move to renewable, wants to move to EVs. So you end up having dependencies on one country. So how will that play out? So that will basically play out in the form of them having leverage in negotiations, meaning the US or Western powers won't be able to, I guess, take action against them so easily. They have to think twice, because if they were to take any course of action against China, it would come at a huge cost. It would come at a cost of addressing the climate change goals. It would come at a cost of their own infrastructure needs.
In the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war and heightened tensions with China, the US and its key partners are looking to reduce their dependence on dominant players. One approach explored is friendshoring, relocating critical mineral production to countries with shared values and production capabilities.
On each paper, we recommend different countries as possible friendly shores for different sectors. In the critical minerals case, there are countries such as Chile, Australia, Canada that we identified as the best candidates for friendshoring.
In June 2022, the US set up the Mineral Security Partnership, an alliance of 14 developed countries to strengthen critical mineral supply chain. India is the only developing nation to recently join the club. The partnership's objective includes promoting ethical mining practices. Nevertheless, producing these critical minerals in strict adherence to robust environmental criteria set among the alliance member states will be a challenge.
On environmental regulations and if that will be an impediment, yes, that's going to be the biggest challenge for friendshoring, especially friendshoring to countries that have high standards. So then the question is, it opens up to the question if US should consider countries in the global south where China engages actively. For example, in the Mineral Security Partnership, they recently included India in the MSP. When the Prime Minister visited Washington, D.C., they included India part of the MSP. Until then, it was more of an elite G7 kind of a club that did not engage many countries in the global south. So that is a start. But even then, countries still in the G7 have this high standard, and they also want to, basically they won't have the cake and eat it too. So you have to choose at times whether you want security or environment. It is going to be a trade-off in many occasions.
Ramesh was speaking to journalists from the Foreign Press Tour in Hawaii. That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching and good night.